Star Wars. When it's good, it's the best. When it's bad, it can cause riots. And under the control of Disney, we're sure to get plenty more of it in the future. Join me today as I rank all 11 Star Wars live-action films from the worst to the best. Before we begin, just a friendly reminder that this list isn't just my opinion, but is, in fact, the only list that matters on the internet, and if you disagree with me, I'll break your arm. I have the high ground, now let's jump into it.
This is where the fun begins.
Number 11, The Rise of Skywalker. I think the word that best describes this film is soulless. It's the lackluster ending of a trilogy that left me feeling unfulfilled and bored. While the movie is a mess with a shoehorned reintroduction of the Emperor, I don't blame director J.J. Abrams, as he had to attempt to unify the previous two films in the sequel trilogy, appease to fan expectations, and endure the pressure of Mickey Mouse's constant stare. He's always watching. I think the cast did their best with what they had, but ultimately Rise of Skywalker is a disappointment that fails to justify its own existence and is ultimately forgettable. Number 10, Attack of the Clones. While it could be argued that Rise of Skywalker is all sizzle, no steak, Attack of the Clones is all steak without the sizzle. The underlying story actually has a lot of interesting ideas, from Obi-Wan's investigation into the mysterious clone army, to Anakin avenging his mother's death, to the tensions with the separatist movement. I even like the idea of Yoda's previous Padawan being the villain of the story. But where it fails is the execution. The dialogue is cringeworthy, it takes way too long before it introduces Count Dooku, and the romance between Padme and Anakin is even worse than sand.
I don't like sand.
But even so, you can definitely tell George Lucas put his heart into every Star Wars film he made, and I can appreciate what he was trying to go for. Number 9. The Last Jedi. This is probably the most divisive Star Wars movie. When I first watched it, I remember watching YouTube reviews on it where one well-known reviewer graded it an A, and I felt like I was missing something, just like how your mom feels like she's missing something when I don't give her my lightsaber. There's my one mom diss per video. Don't get me wrong, the movie has some gorgeous visuals with the throne room scene and the red crystal planet in the finale, but it just doesn't really feel like Star Wars to me. It does a lot to be unpredictable, but focuses so much on trying to be provocative that it forgets to have the emotion and magic that makes Star Wars what it is. I have to admit, I am a sucker for the porgs. I mean, look at them, they're like puppy chickens. But Luke is extremely irritating, #NotMyLuke. I didn't buy into Kylo and Rey's flirtatious relationship. Finn's adventure on the casino planet just didn't interest me, and Poe is criticized for his personality, even though he was one of the standouts in Force Awakens. Rian Johnson took over after J.J. Abrams directed the previous film, and it feels like a completely different movie with a different tone than Force Awakens. I know some of you love this one, but I see more negatives in The Last Jedi than positives. Number 8. Solo, a Star Wars story. While I would give negative reviews for the previous 3 films on this list, everything including Solo and moving forward, I would give a positive rating. When this movie was first announced, I didn't understand what the point was. They had just killed off Han Solo in Force Awakens, and Harrison Ford is so iconic in the role that I couldn't imagine anyone else acting as Han. But the movie is actually a fun time. I enjoyed the budding friendship between Han and Chewie, and Donald Glover's portrayal of Lando is spot on. Alden Ehrenreich does the best that anyone could playing a young Han Solo, but what I think the story lacks is it jumps too quickly at times from one beat to another and can feel like it's rushing through a checklist trying to explain how Han Solo got everything that made him iconic, from his gun to his name to his ship to his friends. I think Solo would have actually worked much better if it was made into a streaming show on Disney Plus instead of a movie, but it's still a decent time in the world of Star Wars. Number 7. The Force Awakens. Our first film in the sequel trilogy. I remember really enjoying this movie when it first came out. The energy in the movie theater was insane. A friend of mine dressed up like Chewbacca, and we went on opening night. The movie was a great time at the theater, but I think over time after Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, it's lost some of its magic for me and has dropped several spots in my ranking. The movie sets up many interesting ideas like Finn's potential force sensitivity to the mysterious villain Snoke. I also really like Adam Driver as an actor, but the trilogy never really goes anywhere with some of those ideas, and then with other ideas, the payoff is just disappointing. It feels like Rian Johnson wanted to take the trilogy in another direction in The Last Jedi, and a lot of the things I enjoyed in The Force Awakens is just undone in the next two movies. It's really a shame because everyone was extremely excited to see Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford all return, but sadly we were never able to see the three of them together on the big screen again before the wonderful Carrie Fisher passed away. It has a lot of missed opportunities that just make me wonder what could have been. Number 6, The Phantom Menace. I actually don't think this movie is nearly as bad as some people make it out to be. There are a lot of things to love about Phantom Menace. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan and Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn are both excellent in the film. The pod race scene is a lot of fun and blew me away when I first watched the movie as a kid. And of course, Darth Maul is a terrifying villain. I know I'll probably get chopped in half for saying this, but I don't even think Jar Jar is that bad. Sure, there's a bit of an issue with the tone of the movie, and I wish Attack of the Clones was a better follow-up, but overall, I still watch this one from time to time and have fond memories of Phantom Menace from my childhood. Number 5, Revenge of the Sith. Definitely the best film in the prequel trilogy. Revenge of the Sith has aged well and is filled with many great moments. The Order 66 scene is one of the greatest moments in all of Star Wars. General Grievous is a great addition to the Star Wars lineup. We really get a sense of the war in Star Wars with space battles, a Wookiee battle, and large-scale action scenes. We get a great little fight between Palpatine and Yoda, and we even get the best lightsaber duel ever in the finale as Obi-Wan and Anakin clash on the lava planet of Mustafar. The lightsaber fight blew me away as a kid as I would attempt to reenact the duel with my friends using wooden sticks as lightsabers. I've had basically 3 phases of this movie in my life. The first phase was absolutely loving it as a 12-year-old, the second was over-criticizing it in college, and now the third phase that I'm currently in is it just reminds me of why I loved my childhood. I've grown to love this film all over again and definitely reappreciate it, especially after getting the Disney sequel trilogy. Number 4, Return of the Jedi. The finale of the original trilogy does a good job at providing a very satisfying end to Luke's journey. I personally have a theatrical version of the movie which doesn't have any of the ridiculous added CGI in it, and there's something magical about all the practical effects and spaceship models in the film. The Endor space battle is amazing, and the speeder bike scene is a lot of fun. We also get the most amount of time in this film with the Emperor and a ton of iconic lines such as Admiral Akbar's "It's a trap!" Yeah, the whole brother-sister thing between Luke and Leia is a bit weird, and I would have definitely preferred Wookiees in the final battle instead of teddy bears, but overall it closes a lot of open storylines very well, gives Darth Vader a satisfying death, and provides a happy ending to our trio of characters. I definitely prefer this ending for Han, Luke, and Leia over the one we get in Rise of Skywalker. Number 3, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Definitely the best Star Wars film that Disney has given us. Rogue One is one of the most grim stories in the Star Wars saga. Just like Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One goes the extra step to show us the war in Star Wars. The violence is gritty and the stakes feel very high. Upon first viewing, I found the characters somewhat forgettable, but having watched it several times now, I've grown to really appreciate and enjoy the characters in the movie, like Jyn Erso, Andor, K2SO, and Chirrut. The movie perfectly sets up A New Hope and makes New Hope even better than it already is. And of course, that Darth Vader scene is absolutely insane. I only wish we'd get more Disney Star Wars films like this in the future. Number 2, A New Hope. The very first Star Wars film is still one of the best. The world of cinema was changed forever with the release of A New Hope, called just Star Wars at that time. The effects in it were unparalleled with incredible practical effects, and the tale of Luke Skywalker's hero's journey is one that we still hold close to us to this day. I have the theatrical version of A New Hope as well, and it's amazing how incredible this movie looks for its time. The film introduced its audience to one of the greatest film universes ever, with iconic heroes, planets, spaceships, villains, weapons, and mythology, and every time I watch this movie, I just feel warmer than the inside of a tauntaun. I love Star Wars, and it all starts with A New Hope. Number 1. Drumroll, drumroll. The Empire Strikes Back. The second movie in the original trilogy takes everything I love about A New Hope and dials it up to 11. We start off with an incredible action scene on Hoth as we're introduced to the AT-ATs. We then travel to Dagobah where we meet Yoda and where Luke has some of his best character moments. We go to Cloud City and meet Lando Calrissian, and the whole thing ends with Luke and Darth Vader clashing in a thrilling lightsaber fight where we get one of the best twists in cinema history. This movie is one of the greatest films of all time and is definitely one of my personal favorite movies and is probably the best sequel in all of film. I wouldn't change a single thing in Empire Strikes Back, and if it wasn't for this movie, I wouldn't have the Lego AT-AT displayed in my living room. I'll get the $800 one day. This movie isn't just one of the main reasons why I'm obsessed with Star Wars, but it's one of the main reasons why I love cinema, period. Well, there you have it, folks. My wife says she's leaving me because of my obsession with Star Wars, so I told her, please don't go, honey. You're the Obi-Wan for me. I'm here all week. I hope you enjoyed this ranking. If you did, you can check out my other video where I ranked all 10 of the 2023 Oscars Best Picture nominees. If you didn't like my video, then you probably loved the Star Wars Holiday Special. It's okay, admitting it is the first step. Before I let you go, I like to recommend a relatively unknown charity in every video. The charity I'd like to recommend today is called Foster Love. Foster Love is a charity committed to changing the foster care system. It's found that about 25% of children become homeless after aging out of the foster care system, and that 80% of inmates in the U.S. spent time in foster care as children and teens. The charity is largely made up of former foster care children who are dedicated to obtaining much-needed programming and resources for foster care families. If you're interested, you can check them out at fosterlove.com. Until next time, thanks again and love y'all.